From the gridiron to the hardwood, James Mesh breaks it all down. It's time for another episode of Cleats and Sneaks.
The NBA Finals are set. It's going to be the Indiana Pacers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I think this is going to be a really intriguing matchup. Welcome into another edition of Cleats and Sneaks, the podcast where we talk about everything going on with the association and the NFL. Right now, NFL is a little bit of a lull right now. We got a couple of storylines here and there, but overall, nothing too crazy to talk about. I think we'll ramp it up a lot more as we get closer to the season. Training camp will be coming up pretty soon, but as of right now, the main focus is, of course, the NBA Finals. Once again, Indiana Pacers, Oklahoma City Thunder, a 1 seed versus the 4 seed. I think this one's actually going to be super fun. I know that we anticipated something of probably the Thunder because they were the 1 seed last year, was disappointing, came back again, was the 1 seed once again, winning well over 60 games, and had no problem. And even as we watched throughout the postseason, even though it got kind of close at times, especially in that second round, overall they handled business, especially most recently, taking down the Minnesota Timberwolves in 5 games. But it was really more of the shocker on the eastern side of the bracket. I think a lot of us, including myself, we anticipated it was going to be either the Boston Celtics or the Cleveland Cavaliers. Yet here we are, it's the Pacers. And really, the first 2 teams that I mentioned, they weren't even in the conference finals to begin with. It was actually a 3-4 matchup between the New York Knicks and the Pacers. Indy ended up getting it in 6 games, and I think what was most impressive about it was the fact that they got the first 2 games on the road in Madison Square Garden, including that crazy Game 1 win in overtime where Tyrese Halliburton seemingly hit the game winner, but his foot was on the line, and it ended up only being a 2-point shot to send it to OT. And then, of course, Tyrese Halliburton went with the signature Reggie Miller choke sign, with Reggie being there in attendance calling the game for the broadcast. I look at this matchup, and I think it's going to be really interesting. I think the main focus that people are talking about is Indy's offense, which makes a lot of sense. The fact that it's got a different type of flow. It's a different type of pace than I think a lot of us would anticipate. And not only that, but they really go 8, 9, and arguably 10 deep with their roster. You got, of course, Tyrese Halliburton, the number 1 option, and the guy that a lot of people are talking about, which makes a lot of sense. Pascal Siakam seemingly goes under the radar, which is surprising to me with how good he's been, especially since he won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP after Indy took it in 6 games over New York. But he's a great scoring option, really good scoring option for them at times. You also look at Miles Turner, who plays the 5 spot for them, and he's pretty solid. He's not too bad on the offensive side, and he's even better on the defensive side. He's someone that's another slept-on piece that I feel like not a lot of people talk about enough. Then they have other guys like Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith, TJ McConnell coming off the bench, and a couple of other guys here and there. They end up going 8, 9 deep, and even Obi Toppin. I forgot about Obi Toppin for a second. They got plenty of guys that they can go to at times, and I think that's what was part of it, was the fact that they had overwhelming numbers that consistently went on the floor compared to what the New York Knicks rolled with. That you didn't get a lot as much production as you saw with Indy when it came to bench points and production coming from there. So I think that was a big part of that in that series, and I think this could play a factor as well in this series in the finals versus the Thunder. The issue, though, is OKC also can run 8, 9, and even go 10 deep as well. So whatever advantage Indy necessarily had there with the number and quality of guys that they could bring onto the floor at any point, it kind of gets nullified by the Thunder as well. The big factor, and what I think a lot of people are talking about, again, going back to Indy's offense. It's a lot of different guys. A lot of different guys can score for them at any point in the ball game. And then I look towards OKC and their defense going to be matching up against the Pacers offense. And I think they can match them just as well. A big part of Indy's offense is the fact that the main ball handler in Halliburton doesn't really turn over the ball. He even had a historic stat that I feel like sometimes we make up at times just to make it sound even more impressive. Not to take away with the excellent nights that we've seen from these guys, because Tyrese Halliburton, even in that night, was absolutely impressive. But it feels like you're like, this is the first player to ever do this, and this on this type of night based off of these types of circumstances. And I'm like, okay, how are we even coming up with this? Like, it's mind-boggling, the statisticians that go out there and like, hey, look, this is the first time that we've ever found this. Now, modern technology definitely helps with that, but still, the fact that you are going through this and are like, yeah, this has never happened before, or two other guys have ever done this in NBA history. And this even goes for even baseball and football with the NFL and stuff. So it's not just basketball, it's sports in general. It's absolutely crazy to say, but getting off of my small tangent there, I think that what Indy could have had in an advantage with the way they play basketball in their rotations feels like it gets nullified by OKC's defense because of the amount of guys that can actually play defense for them at a pretty good to high level. They can go 8-9 deep as well. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who we predominantly look at more on the offensive side of the ball, especially since he won MVP for the NBA, he's no Joe Schmo on the defensive side either. It's not like he's an absolute liability for them. And then they even got guys like Isaiah Hartenstein and Chet Holmgren, who we even look at as not necessarily defensive savants, but they're definitely not lacking on that side of the ball either. They got Lou Dort. They got both Jalen Williamses. They got Alex Caruso coming off the bench. They got plenty of guys. Isaiah Joe and others that all can defend. So I think those kind of take away from each other. And it's the main talking point for a lot of people. But for me, what I'm actually looking at a little bit more is the flip side. I look at OKC's offense, and it's not prolific by any stretch. The majority and oftentimes what they do when it comes to their offensive production is not only the foul baiting by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the fact that he gets a high majority of free throw attempts, which helps put OKC's numbers offensively a lot higher than maybe a lot of other teams, but also the fast break. The fact that they play such good defense. That's going to be an interesting thing to look at, is how often and what kind of battles are going to be won there when it comes to the turnovers. Because if OKC can actually turn Tyrese Halliburton and the Pacers over and their live ball turnovers, that leans heavily into OKC's favor. That's something to really look out for. But I am curious, when it comes to the half-court offense for OKC, how often can they actually produce points on legitimate possessions, hitting the shots instead of just going straight up to the free throw line? That's something to definitely look out for. Do guys like Obi Toppin, Andrew Nembhard, Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, Pascal Siakam, do any of them end up going into foul, like big-time foul numbers where you have to go into trouble and you're having to sit longer periods, especially late in the first half and in the latter part of the third and early part of the fourth quarter where your team needs you? Do any of those key players end up getting into foul trouble where it puts your team in a significant disadvantage, especially against a good team like OKC that finds definitely ways to get to the charity stripe? That's something to definitely look out for. But I am curious, the half-court offense versus the half-court defense when it comes to the Thunder and the Pacers. Because we look at how much the Pacers can score at times. They very easily can get to 120, no problem. And it's the same thing with OKC with how they play basketball. But Indy's defense is actually pretty good as well. Tyrese isn't great, but Obi Toppin's pretty good. You look at Aaron Nesmith, he's a 3-and-D type of guy where we even saw back in that game one, a part of that comeback against the Knicks, 138-135 in game one. Andrew Nembhard, Aaron Nesmith's 8-for-9 three-point shooting was absolutely phenomenal. And also at times, Aaron Nesmith took away Jalen Brunson in that series. So I am curious, how is Aaron going to be able to guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? That's something to really make note of, because other guys like Shepherd trying to guard Brunson didn't work as well. And if Aaron Nesmith is one of those guys that actually gets into foul trouble at times, or even if it's Toppin or Nembhard, or they switch Halliburton onto Shai as well, what kind of pressure can they put on Indy's defense? Because trying to get into the paint, that's going to be tough. One of the better shot blocking bigs in my opinion, is Miles Turner. And then it's not like you look at Siakam and he's a liability either. That guy can actually play pretty good as well. He's pretty solid on both sides of the floor. Once again, Pascal Siakam, I feel like not a lot of people talk about him enough. Him and Miles Turner, those two in the backcourt, that's an underrated duo. And it's partially a big factor as to why Indy has gotten as far as it has. Something to make note of there. I am really curious, what kind of switching do they do? Does Aaron Nesmith predominate play against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander? Because Lou Dort, not that great on the offensive end. Jalen Williams at times can definitely score for you. We even saw it in the last series against Minnesota. He put up 34. Like, he can have times where he actually can get hot. It's just not the most consistent, I guess you could say. That battle in the paint, though, between Chet Holmgren and Miles Turner, and even Chet Holmgren and Pascal Siakam, who wins those battles? The rebounding is definitely going to be interesting to see. And what happens whenever there's live ball turnovers and changes in possession with the rebounding? Because if you can get a couple leaks out for easy layups and easy transition points, this could lean very easily one way or another. The thing, though, is I think not a lot of people want to give the Pacers credit because of how good and dominant OKC has been. It's no surprise that the Thunder are the leader and the team that is favored to win the series and win their first title. That's right. In case you haven't realized, the Thunder and the Pacers have not won an NBA title for as long as they've been. Now, I know the Supersonics back in the 79-80 season won an NBA title, but that was also a different franchise and when they were in a different part of the country. Since they moved to OKC and became the Thunder, they have not won. So I'm taking away that caveat. One way or another, we are going to have a team win their first NBA Finals as a franchise. It's going to be absolutely incredible to see. I'm really excited to see what happens. The only thing, though, is the Thunder are favored, and you can even see it when it comes to our ESPN analysts. You look out of the 23 guys that put in their submissions of who wins and in how many games, you want to take a guess at how many chose the Pacers? I'll give you a second. If you said less than 5, you would be correct. But if you gave me the correct answer of exactly 3, there you go. The 3 were Chris Canty, Freddie Coleman, and Jeremy Woo. And here's the thing. You look at how many games. Canty said Indy in 7. Coleman said Pacers in 6. And then Woo went with Pacers in 7. So if the Pacers win this, it's going to be a hard, long fought battle down to the end. This isn't going to be a runaway, more likely than not, series in favor of Indiana. It's either it's going to have to come down late and play the long battle if you're Indy, or the Thunder win this with relative ease, whether it's a gentleman's sweep or in a competitive 6. Because you even look at some of the other analysts, and you can go check it out on ESPN.com, look at the article that they had posted there. Quite a few people actually chose the Thunder in 5, which I think is a discredit to Indiana. The way I'm looking at this series, when it all boils down, my prediction is going to be OKC in 6. It upsets me because I'm rooting. Me personally, my personal interest, I'm actually rooting for Indiana to win this series. I like Tyrese Haliburton. He's a fun guy to watch. Aaron Nesmith, he used to be a Boston Celtic, and now he's blossomed into the player that he is nowadays with the Pacers. It's really nice to see how good of a role he plays. That 3-and-D position. Andrew Nembhard is an underrated factor in all of this. The front court with Pascal Siakam and Miles Turner. It's really interesting to see. And just the way that they play basketball is fun to watch, in my opinion. I enjoy watching their style of basketball compared to what OKC does. Though, I can't deny how good that the Thunder have been. So even though I don't want to pick against the Pacers, I'm still going to pick OKC in this one. I think they win it in 6, and I think it's going to be a competitive 6 series. I don't think that it's going to be too one-sided in favor of the Thunder. Are you going to see a couple blowouts here and there? Sure, especially since you look at it with the fact that OKC is going to be on their home floor early on, especially tonight. Game 1, it's going to be at 7:30. You'll be able to check it out on ABC. But once they send it back to Indiana, I would not be shocked at all if Indiana, whether it's game 3 or 4, they end up winning now and winning it pretty convincingly by double-digit points, say 14, 15, or 16. But by the end of it all, I do think that OKC wins it all and captures their first title as the Thunder. That's going to do it for another edition of Cleats and Sneaks. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel ESPN Southwest Louisiana. We got plenty of great local content, talking golf with Over Par. We've got the 4 Tire Change podcast with Dawson Igelo. We've even got the Miguez Mindset and more local content for LSU, Saints, Pelicans, whatever. We got it for you. Appreciate you tuning in. I'll be talking to you next time after the finals or even in the middle of it, depending on how fast or slow this series plays out. Appreciate you tuning in, and I'll talk to you next time.